Hi there, and welcome back to the Community Strategy Podcast. My name is Deb Shell. I'm a creator turned community builder. After launching my online community in 2020, I have a passion for online events and bringing people together. I now consult business owners and leaders just like yourself who have a message, their life's work, or a vision for helping others transform through their online courses, cohorts, or memberships. On this interview style podcast, you'll hear conversations with community leaders, passion for bringing people together online. Our goal is to provide you with interesting conversations to inspire you to build, launch, and grow an online community with energy, confidence, and purpose. Let's get started. I am just going to jump in here and give you a recap real quick about the conversation I just had with Laurence from the Happy Startup School. So we chatted about so many things. This episode is packed with tons of community strategy. Although what he told me was that he didn't have a community strategy. Carlos is his co-founder, and they founded the Happy Startup School about 10 years ago, actually, with in-person events in a park in London. And what he said was this community building process was a lot about faith and iteration and changing and acceptance of like how this changed over time. They had launched an in-person event through Meetup, using Meetup.com, having meetups, and then people kept asking about how do we connect after this. And so it was based on the validation that he found working with these entrepreneurs and business owners and new startups, people who wanted to had an idea and wanted to start a business but didn't really know how, and realized that all these people didn't want to sit at home alone and do, creating content and doing things all by themselves. Really wanted to connect with community, which is what I'm all about. And we talked a lot about how to collaborate within community. He broke down the strategies that he used with a Medium blog to build his audience, as well as an email list. He really built an in-person initiative first, though. That was how they found really true success monetarily. So they had an in-person event with 150 people. They've had that just recently. So he shares about the summer camp that they just experienced. They talk about the online community, what they're using now for the platform, how they chose that platform, and kind of about, what the future is for startups. And just honing in on, we don't like, as a startup, I don't know about you, if you're a startup or if you identify as a founder or a startup or an entrepreneur or maybe a solo entrepreneur, but it's hard. It's hard work, and you're doing a lot, and you're trying to do it on the fly, and you're trying to figure everything out and change as rapidly as possible when you're getting feedback from people. And so one of the biggest tips that he talked about was just trusting in the values that you establish. And so some of those values for him were asking a lot of questions of themselves as founders and the members as well, just talking about, how can we put purpose in front of profits? Is it possible to do that? What does that look like? And not just as a hobbyist, but as a business owner. So many things in this episode that came up for me. And I joined the Happy Startup School as a member over the summertime, and have just been enjoying our random conversations with this one virtual call that I've been attending throughout my time there online in their online community, as I'm in the US and they're in the UK and Europe. And so it's been really interesting. One of the things that I had to learn, and I'll wrap up here, was just to drop my assumptions around what meeting is and what talking about a business as a founder is. Because honestly, I showed up and just realized that we can have deeper conversations and meaningful and purposeful conversations without talking about pricing and offer and marketing and sales. So wanted to just shout out, thanks to Laurence and the Happy Startup School for sharing these amazing learning lessons with us today on the Community Strategy Podcast. And there are some amazing tips in there. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. Hi all, and thanks for joining us again with the Community Strategy Podcast. My name is Deb Shell. I'm the host. And on this podcast, we chat with community leaders and professionals building online communities with purpose and intention. And today I've got Laurence. Laurence McCahill.
That'll do.
with me today. Tell me where you're calling in from today, Laurence.
I'm calling in from Brighton in England, in the UK. So just on the
Beautiful.
south coast, about an hour from London, which I'm guessing most of your listeners will know about.
Yes, yes. The audience here with the Community Strategy Podcast is kind of shifted between the US and the UK, Europe audience. So yeah, got a mix there. Thanks for joining today.
It's a privilege. No, glad to be here.
And I'm super excited to get in and learn a little bit more about you. I've been a part of the Happy Startup School, which you've been just celebrated. How many years that you've been running the Happy Startup?
It will be 10 years this month or next month, maybe. I can't quote. Depends what you define as the start date. But in my eyes, it's like when we registered the domain name. So I might need to go and check exactly when that was, because I don't know about you, but the thing, if I've got an idea, I'll just register a domain name and probably years later have hundreds of domain names that never ever came to see the light of day. But yeah, that was one that stuck. So yeah, I'll have to work that one out. But yeah, it's around now, 10 years, decade of the Happy
Very
Startup
cool. So tell us a little bit about the Happy Startup School and what the vision was there and how that got started.
Wow. Well, I'd love to say we had a really strong vision of what this was going to become back then, but really at the time it was more of I think an idea, maybe a wish and a frustration. So myself and Carlos, who's my co-founder and longtime friend, we were running a web design agency around that time, and we were working with a lot of entrepreneurs who wanted to bring their ideas to life. And so on that journey, we'd help them build their website. And over time, we ended up developing a real niche around helping people to build online platforms and applications. And that became their business. So in some ways, we were helping them not just to build a website and a brand, we were helping them to build a business online. And so we started to then, earn our craft really in not just product and design and development, but also in terms of startup coaching, mentoring, therapy, call it what you will. And on that journey, we just hit a bit of a wall where we realized a lot of the work around startups, a lot of the narrative was very much all of the same ilk, i.e. you build something to grow it, to scale it, and often to sell it. And we weren't really inspired by that after working on a few of those projects. And so in some ways, the Happy Startup School was almost a bit of a backlash against that. We wanted to explore, is there another view of entrepreneurship that put purpose before profit and looked at success in different ways. And so really that was our idea at the start, was like, what would business, the world look like if we put purpose, happiness, impact before profit? And that was really it. That was just an idea we had. And so we put that out, and 10 years later, here we are. But yeah, we never have imagined what we'd have done if we'd have set out. Maybe we would have been scared to start if we had known the path we'd take.
And I was just thinking about, what is that? What does that? To me, I'm thinking, okay, if you have a business that's not focused as much on profit, then is that a business?
Yeah, that's a good
or
question.
is it a hobby?
Well, this is it. And this is why it was never an assumption. It was just a question, if anything. And that's why on our programs now and conversations, we often ask people like, what's your mission question, rather than what's your mission statement? Because I believe that curiosity is what brings other people in. And actually that's what worked for us, is like, we're trying to work this out. Is it actually an assumption that could be true? So yeah, we've always put money at the heart of everything we do, but it's not the most important thing. And so that's, I think, one caveat. It's not just a question of like, do I go down the purpose route or do I go down the profit route? And I think it's a mistake a lot of people make, is they think I either need to be a non-profit or a charity, or I need to be a sort of money hungry billionaire unicorn, and there's no in between. The way we see it is, it's just having other forms of currency almost in terms of how we make decisions, and for money not to be the sole driver of that when we're thinking about building our businesses.
And how did you work with entrepreneurs in the past, or was that something you were doing before you and Carlos started the school, or is this something that was you had previous different background that you transitioned into this?
Yeah, well, like I said, we were helping people to, more than anything, build a shop front online for their businesses. So a lot of these people were startups, more small businesses really than typical tech startups. But as soon as we started to niche into, helping people to bring their kind of digital ideas to life, i.e. often the first version or prototype of an application or an app, then that's when we really started to attract more first-time entrepreneurs often. And so probably for a good 2 or 3 years before we started the school, we were working with these individuals or teams to help them just explore, what does this product look like? And so on that journey, we learned loads, on their time often. But yeah, this was their baby, this was their startup. And so in some ways we were thrown into their world, which gave us a lot of challenges, but also a lot of learnings too, which we then channeled into what came next. So yeah, we felt like we did our apprenticeship really over those few years, where we were just understanding not just what is it people are trying to do, but like why are they trying to do it. And that was the bit that fascinated me particularly, was what made them start this business. What was it about them that connected them to this mission that they were on? And in some ways, as a designer, helping them to tell their story to the outside world, like how do we get people to care about this product, not just buy it, but buy into the story behind it.
And how do you think that, what were some success stories, or is there anything that you remember from that time that really impacted you?
Yeah, well, I know there's a lot of situations where people didn't necessarily want to be prodded and probed in the way we were. So there's a lot of frustration, I think, for some of the clients we were with, because they didn't employ us to be difficult or challenge them. So, you can't coach someone who doesn't want to be coached, right? So
the constant challenge of the client wanting you to do what they say and not ask questions.
Exactly.
And you're like, but we can't do what we need to do without some of these questions. I've run into that a lot in my experience with clients, and I love questions. I was a background in journalism, so I've definitely asked lots of them over years, and I find that they just help so much in getting clarity, right?
Yeah, and it's that thing of, at the time, the way we positioned ourselves was we weren't really sure what our true worth was or our true value. So clients would come to us pitting us up against, maybe a development shop in, Asia. And that would be like, okay, I just here's a brief, go build it, give me a quote. What can you guys do? Versus actually, maybe the brief you've written isn't really worth much because you don't really know what you're basing it on. There's a lot of assumptions you're making about this product. So in some ways, we want them to rip it up and start again, but that's not the most diplomatic way of going about it. So we try and have workshops and conversations to get people to open up, and then to realize, we don't want to build something that no one wants. We don't want to waste all their money on a product that maybe isn't the right product. So that was, a learning for us in terms of how to navigate that and how to deal with entrepreneurs and be sensitive to a vision that they've got, because we can all be stubborn lot. So you don't want to be too
have ideas
difficult
that we really believe in or locked into, but then have a hard time seeing all of the when people poke holes in them.
Exactly.
Or just asking the challenging the question to make things successful, to make it clear to me, because messaging and how you speak about something is how people relate to what you're talking about. Yeah. How did you transition then to client work and then the startup school? What did that look like?
Well, it was more of an evolution, really, I would say. So, we started out doing web design work, then we evolved into this startup studio. So we built a process and some services around helping people to bring their first product to life. And then the Happy Startup School really started as a side project. So it wasn't like we just jacked in the agency and just followed that path. It was very much, test and iterate and experiment on the side. And we'd always wanted to build our own products. So there was a vision both me and Carlos had, I think, to eventually take all this learning we'd had building our agency and then apply that to our own thing. So even though as an agency founder, or I suppose any creative working for other clients, you're your own boss, but you're not. You have a bit of freedom, but you kind of lose a lot of creativity and autonomy because you're ultimately, as we said, at the beck and call of the people paying the bills. So I suppose the route for us was either we, become more skilled, become more thought leaders in that space, maybe build a bigger team, bigger office, bigger clients, and grow the agency, which was one route. And there was lots of people and friends and peers we had who took that route. But that didn't really inspire us. Like, we'd have conversations with some of those people and it just didn't sell that vision to us for what we wanted for our lives or careers. So I think we struggled with I'd say a new vision for that business because we were 10 years in. I certainly got to the point where I wasn't really enjoying it as much as I was at the start. I was doing less creative work, more managing, more more operations in some ways, because a lot of the projects we were working on became 6 months, 12 months, year-long projects. So I don't know, I like the start. I like that honeymoon bit at the beginning, where you're getting those ideas out there. And I was doing less of that and more just account management, really, which wasn't really my skill set. And so the Happy Startup School felt like a fun part of my week. It felt like more and more the thing that energized me and excited me. And then I go back to the client work, and it felt like putting an old pair of shoes on. When you get a new pair of trainers or sneakers, you feel like, oh, this is exciting. And then you put the old slippers back on, and they don't fit anymore. So it took a good couple of years, I would say, for us to really understand what it was we were creating, and to build the confidence, really, to be able to just eventually close the agency and to move into this as our full-time venture, which in some ways was only possible due to the community we built, which had given us that confidence. There wasn't much, we weren't there sitting in there in stealth mode planning this out. It was very much in collaboration with others, which was a big part of that.
Yeah. What did your community strategy look like? That's what I'd love to dig into there. Did you have a lot of planning around a community strategy before you launched or brought people together?
No, well, I was about to say, you're making it sound like there was a strategy. Carlos wanted one. Carlos was always saying, "What's the plan? Show me the plan." And Carlos, by his own admission, loves control. He's a scientist by background. His skill set is not just, but there's a big part of him that is good in structure. And so, for me, I was really following my gut with this and my feeling and intuition around that this is something that could be our future. That something we can devote our time to. So I would say there was a strategy, but I would say there was a faith in terms of, we were getting more response from this within a few months of doing it than we had done in 10 years of running an agency. Just the level of feedback, and this, I guess, just the depth of response was, this is what we maybe could be doing. And when you're doing creative work, a lot of the time the feedback you get is something's wrong, fix this, change this. It's very, very rare you get praise or any sort of really positive. I mean, it's not true, you probably get some, but I certainly felt like I wasn't getting that instant feedback.
The second that you you spend months on a website and your marketing and all these things, and then you're like, launch day, yay, celebrate, put it out there, and then there's 17 people that are like, hey, you have something spelled wrong on your website, hey, this link doesn't work, hey, I think you should do
exactly
17 others. Do you have an email list yet? Do you have your social media following? No, we just started.
Exactly.
Shut up, do your own business, and then talk to me after you've done all the work. But people love to just dig in and be like, here, do this. Which is
I can definitely
frustrating as a startup.
And also because we were building eventually a lot more complex systems, that there was code underlying it, there was software, and so that was on another level, whereby it wasn't just a typo on the website. It was like, if something's wrong with the code, then it could just throw out the whole app. And so the level of responsibility that came with that work became greater and greater. And so that was a source of stress and anxiety, sleepless nights, because you're thinking, God, we're learning whilst doing this work, and technology is changing all the time. And so that, I think, and we were working with entrepreneurs who, this is their baby, this is their the kind of thing they're living for, and so they expect you to pick up the phone on a Saturday and fix something, because if you don't, then what are they going to do for the next 2 days? They're going to stress out. So that was not, I would say, a path that we could have walked for many years, because that takes an awful lot of commitment to that work.
The tech stack, where did you start with your community? Did you start with Muddy in the beginning?
No, so we're on Mighty Networks now, but no, at the beginning it was more in person, to be honest. We didn't really, this is like 2012, so we actually started on Meetup. So we in some ways Meetup, I would say, was our test bed, really. We started a Meetup group in London. The great thing about Meetup, certainly then, was it was pretty popular, so a lot of people in London were on it. We offered something different. There was a lot of tech startup meetup groups. There was a lot of coding groups and design groups, but there was nothing that sort of brought all of these things together and a bit of social entrepreneurship to it. So we had people sign up. We could see who was signing up. We could ask them a question. We could get some information that way from them. And so we just started to run some regular monthly meetups. And then that, in person on the ground was a way to slowly build that community. And naturally at the end of those meetups, people say, oh, how do we stay in touch? How do we stay connected? Right. And so we could see that there was a need there, rather than us building out a strategy of this is how this is going to work. We were very much reacting to what we were hearing, because we'd never set out to create a community. It was very much, following that thread, following that idea, and yeah, just a bit of serendipity, a bit of meeting of needs, let's say, that kind of connected us to that community.
Meetup is such a interesting way to, I think it's such a great way to just start and connect people with one common thread, and then building those relationships. Is that how you kind of, it sounds like from what you're explaining, is that's how you kind of did conversationally ideal member interviews, figuring out who your ideal members were and who was going to be the right fit for the community that you wanted to create? Is that kind of
I remember one of the things I did at the beginning was I remember reaching out to a few of the people that signed up to the group and just said, do you fancy a chat? And so I'd have a call with them just to understand, like, what was it about the group that you like the look of? Because obviously you have a description, and there's, that was all just amazingly valuable feedback for me to know what resonated with them about this. Was it just a random, hey, you said startup, or I'm new in London, I just want to meet some new people? Or was there something more whereby your message, your mission sounded really interesting? And so those conversations really helped. And so, yeah, those meetups were like one big focus group in some ways, to understand what's on people's mind, like what challenges are people facing, like what talks do people find interesting, and just who are they? Like, who are these people? Like, are they startups? Are they designers? Are they developers? Are they people who work in corporates? And it turned out it was all of those people. There was this real mix of people from different points in their entrepreneurial journey, but also just different jobs and careers. So it wasn't just they're all entrepreneurs looking to find purpose, for example. It was people who love the ethos, who actually that attracted people from, like I said, people who work in corporates who want to learn about how to bring more purpose and meaning to those environments, or people who work in schools, who might be a teacher, who are curious about well-being and how we can apply that to education. So that almost was like a little microcosm of the community we built today, which is this melting pot of people and ideas all connected around a common set of values, I would say, and a mindset around work and life.
Yeah, so interesting. And for everybody who is listening to the episode, just a scoop for you that David Siegel, the CEO of Meetup, is going to be episode 100. So I'm super excited that David has decided to speak on the Community Strategy Podcast. So
awesome.
The community that you've built, you have, I don't know, a couple hundred members, I think, right now. What was the transition like from like meeting up online, or sorry, in person, to transitioning it to an online community? What did that look like?
Well, it was very much born out of our summer camp event, which we run annually. So that we did the first one in 2013. So we'd run meetups for a few months, and then we had this desire really just to put on a day event. So rather than just a couple of hours in the evening, we put on our first summer camp, which was just a day in London, in Hyde Park. And off the back of that, again, the same questions: how do we stay in touch? And so we created a Facebook group at the time, which was a simple way to just keep that community connected. And then the following year, we did our first weekend summer camp, which was 3 days. We had 150 people come for that. And that was really when everything changed, I would say. We closed the agency 6 months afterwards. We ran our first leadership retreat after that. We started the online community. So I did our first online course. So that was almost the catalyst for everything else.
So the people that were kind of coming consistently to the meetup were kind of the pool with who came to your summer camp? Is that
partly, but also we were blogging at the time, so we started to build a following on Medium. So Medium, I say, was our other channel to reach people, and Meetup was great for in-person contact specifically to London and Brighton, where we eventually moved to. But the beauty about blogging or podcasting, as you know, is you can reach anyone anywhere. And so we had these kind of parallel communities, really. We had a global community building online, and we had a local community building on the ground. And so some of the people who came from summer camp came from overseas, which surprised us in some ways, that they felt they knew us well enough to, or trusted us well enough to jump on a plane and come to this crazy day in London. But at the same time, we didn't sort of push against that, because we were just really curious, like, okay, what are they not finding where they are that they find here? And so that again made us think, well, there's definitely something here if someone's willing to trust us enough to jump on a plane to come and hang out with us for a day. And so that's where this online community came in more, was, again, how do we bring these different people together, both people on the ground and people who've met online?
Yeah. What was your experience with just developing these relationships? And did you build a social media channel as you were growing at the same time? Was it were you doing email lists? I mean, I know there's some people that are going to listen to the episode being like, were you doing all the things?
I think building our email list was probably one of the most fundamental things we did from the start. And so Meetup's great, but you don't have access to people's email. And in some ways, I wish we'd been a bit more sort of diligent about how we did that. Especially when we had meetups, try and get people's email. So, but we did try and direct people to our email newsletter, and so we offered free ebooks and things, and discounts on the events. And we started to grow that quite quickly. So we started to go from like a few hundred to a few thousand, and so that really became where we talked to people, how we communicated. But then on the back of that, Medium started to take off, and we started to see a lot more traffic on Medium than we did on our own blog. And so in some ways, I wouldn't say that was a bad decision, but now looking back, now Medium's changed the algorithm. Like with any social media channel, in some ways, you're then tied to them, but then when they change the algorithm, you don't get maybe the same response that you did before. And so we've got something like 120,000 followers on Medium. We used to get tons of traffic, whereas now, it's like talking to an empty room, and that's the trouble with some of these platforms. So I would say our email list still is how we basically communicate to most of our community. And that's the bit I find challenging with this, is our Mighty Networks community is a couple of hundred, but we've probably had like 5,000 come through our programs. We've had, I don't know, probably almost 1,000 come through our summer camp. So there's all these like sub communities of the Happy Startup School. We've got a Facebook group with 500 in it, which is our summer camp alumni. We've got God knows how many WhatsApp groups of all the different cohorts and programs and retreats we've run, with maybe 20, 25 people in each one, that many of them are still active. So our goal with Mighty Networks was to bring it all together, but it hasn't actually materialized like that. It turns out it's actually just a specific group of people who have a need to stay connected in this way online more regularly. Whereas a lot of the other groups are really those who've had shared experiences, and they've had a connection at a specific time and a place. And so that's allowed them to build that connection and be quite happy with that group that they have, rather than feel the need to connect with the wider community or other people who they may have not shared an experience with. So that's been an interesting learning for us.
Yeah. And what brought you to Mighty?
Well, we tried almost everything else at the time. So we tried Facebook groups, we tried Slack. There wasn't the choice that there is now, I would say, in terms of community platforms. Mighty Network was one of the first. I remember when it was Mighty Bell, I think, was it before?
Mighty Bell.
So I liked the vision for it. I liked the fact that it was bringing everything together in one place, particularly with us doing in-person events, online events, courses. And so the idea that this was a place where, and even we had, like, at this point, years of resources and videos, and so this archive of stuff. And so it seemed appealing to be able to just say, here it all is, everything in one place, which obviously comes with challenges because it's less focused than maybe some platforms. But for us, it was just the best at the time for what we could find, for what we needed.
What's your experience now with the platform? And there's constantly new features coming, and they have live streaming now, and all of these other changes that are happening. Where where your thoughts at? You're gonna stick with
Yeah,
Mighty, or
I think it's challenging because, I think the live streaming thing we didn't really experiment with much, but I think there's a temptation with any platform, and we found this years ago, is a temptation to just try and build one thing that fixes every problem. And so we used to be there and on the receiving end of this when the client says, yeah, I'm frustrated with using this for that and this for that. I just want to create one thing that brings it all together. I think the challenge with that is, we use Crowdcast for our live podcasts and it works really well and we get really good engagement on there. We use Zoom, we use MailChimp, we use Mighty Networks. That can be annoying for a lot of people to have all these different apps out there, but in some ways trying to replace it all with one thing is difficult. So I kind of see Mighty Networks almost as a signpost in some ways for us, for a lot of things we do, to be able to say, look, with the Crowdcast, go check it out, sign it there. So we haven't necessarily used some of the features like live video and things like that in the same way. But I said that the things that it is good for is particularly our courses. So we host our programs on there, and we tried other platforms from that, and we found it to be a good way to do that. Some of them have just been too complex for what we need, and so being able
for the course building platforms you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, we used Teachable and tried some others before. So yeah, that's useful to have the courses all in one place, and I could see that being more of where we focus in the future, is being able to create more mini courses and to be able to create those on Mighty Networks and not have them sort of spread all around the internet.
Yeah, so I know your community is paid. You have a paid membership, and then you have courses that are an additional payment, or programs that you have that are additionally charged, and that's kind of how you've been able to be profitable and successful and continuing in the community building space, right?
Yeah, so I would say a few years ago, our vision was more to do the in-person events because we love doing those, but they're really hard to build a successful business around, or sustainable business, because the margins are so tight and events are unpredictable. So then our vision, I would say, was to create more of a scalable community where we could get a lot more members paying a little bit, and again, harnessing this global community that we built. I think the challenge with that for us was, what is it we're trying to sell? Like, what's the problem we're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And that we found, given the diversity of our audience, as I said before, makes it difficult, because we have people who've been running businesses for 10 years. We've got people who are starting out. We've got people who aren't even starting a business, but want to learn about this stuff. So what we found was, actually, if we can have a place where we can bring all this stuff together and then create more separate paid courses where we solve a specific problem. So whether it's our vision program, where we help people get clarity on what we call their Excite strategy, or our pricing course, where we help people to be more comfortable pricing their worth. These are more specific pain points that we can help people with. And actually, we can still build community around those things because they're all cohort based, but everyone's coming to the same entry point and everyone's got the same need. And that, in our eyes, is not something, in the past we'd have thought, well, we'll just throw that into the membership. But we've actually found, particularly for more challenging problems, let's say, or complex problems, to have cohort-based programs with a start and an end has really helped to both help us build a business around it, but also help the people we can help have more attention from us, really, as guides and mentors.
Yeah, I think it's hard to do a monthly membership program because you're constantly having to support those people versus a standard program where it's like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, it's beginning to end, and then you could have breaks between for reviewing and kind of gaining insights from your experience, right? Exactly. But you do have, so I'm in the membership part of it, and there's the only call that I really can make because of the timing is the Soul Cafe. Soul Cafe, which has been a really interesting experience. Completely not what I was expecting when I first joined, but I've been loving those conversations. What's your vision for the membership community component? What are you working on or doing?
The interesting thing about it is, in some ways, it's been about letting go of a vision for it. So in the past, we've always tried to force it and tried, because it came off the back of the community. It wasn't something we said, let's go start an online community. It was very much like people said, we want this, we need this. And so it felt like a responsibility we had to create a space for people to stay connected, because some people wanted that. By trying to make that the main thing, as in the main revenue generator for the business, I think that was the mistake we made, because like you said, it's a challenging business model. It's not to say it's impossible, but for us it was a challenging one. So then we were trying to, you know, create an artificial learning journey, for example, that people could go on. So when they join, you know, they can sort of get resources and tools and things that can help them move forward. What we've actually found is creating space for others to step in, i.e. Soul Cafe is a great example of that. David Papa, who came to summer camp a few years ago and then shared this vision that he wanted to collaborate with us around, I think he wanted to call it Soul Works at the time. So helping founders and entrepreneurs explore their spiritual side and actually explore this overlap between spirituality and entrepreneurship. So the more woo-woo end of what we do, let's say. And so that Soul Cafe started out as a group for that space and became a regular sort of bi-monthly event where, you know, we get to discuss some of the bigger questions that we might be facing in a safe, friendly space. And so that really became something that stuck. And we've seen this again with other things like Francis and Simon, who are community members. They run a marketing session every month. And so creating space for others to step in by us stepping out has been really interesting to see happen. And that's one thing we see at our events, like summer camp. Me and Carlos aren't front and center. We have a host, we have other people come work, you know, we give other people a platform to shine. Same with our retreat Altitude. We don't really bring in any external speakers or workshop leaders. The group creates the content and we just facilitate that and host that. And when necessary or when it's needed, we'll step in to offer our advice and knowledge. So that's kind of what we do, but just to see how it's evolved over the online space has been interesting, because we were almost trying to take a different tact of, yeah, we should be doing it this way, we're doing it wrong, when actually maybe just doing it the way we do it is fine, as long as we just see it as we said, not the main revenue generator for the business. Because yeah, as we found, if you've got a leaky bucket, if you've got a leaky bucket, there's no point bringing more water into it. And so that's what we found, is because we weren't really clear about what it was, the churn would be higher, and so that made it more difficult to get to make it sustainable, just as our main thing, really.
Yeah, you just had a summer camp last month.
Yes, it was almost 4 weeks ago. 4 or 5 weeks ago.
How was that? Tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, it was amazing and exhausting in equal measure, I would say. So we haven't done one for 3 years because of COVID. So in some ways I'd say it was a really good thing to have that break, because we've been doing it nonstop for sort of 7-8 years. So like anything, if you take a step back, have a chance to reflect and reassess, then you come back to it with fresh eyes. So I would say, I mean, a lot of people said it was our best one, because I think people just were very grateful for it, because, you know, 2 years ago, we never knew when we'd be able to do this kind of thing again. Yeah. People really enjoying the richness of just being in person, in nature, outdoors, and just being able to spend time together. And a lot of people who'd met online too. So, you know, many of the people who'd been part of the community or done our programs over the last couple of years know each other really well, but never met in person. So that was really lovely to see, as well as all the people who maybe had been before, who were just reconnecting with this experience. So yeah, it felt like the most, I'd say the one with the most depth, most emotion in some ways, because for a lot of people, this is the first time they've been able to do something for themselves for so long. But yeah, I found the build-up quite tiring, because there's so many things that are just forgotten, or because you hadn't done it for so long, you're just out of the habit. And so, you know, everything just took more energy and effort. And we wanted it to be amazing, because we set a really high bar for ourselves. So that, I'd say me and Carlos, probably last week was the first week we kind of could breathe again after summer camp, because you just realize what you're holding. And then when it's finished, you're like, a lot of relief, I would say, first and foremost, that we pulled it off, and excited again about doing it next year. Now it's fresh in the memory. Yeah, super exciting. And how many people were at that? The 150. One? So yeah, we don't allow any more than that. Yeah, deliberately. I think it's Dunbar's number, the social anthropologist. But yeah, we found any more than that, it just becomes too many. It's just the perfect size group for the experience we create. So we only sell 100 tickets, 50, and then there's 50 of the 150 are the crew, volunteers, and all the speakers and workshop leaders and activity leaders. So we look for people that want to stay for the whole weekend. So every speaker stays for the whole 3 days, which makes it really special.
Oh, and I love that you were talking earlier about community-led events and community-led initiatives, because I think, community members, by elevating them, you are giving them a voice, which is what community is all about, is how allowing people to be seen, valued, and heard. And just that ability to see that is a really great asset for you to just say, oh, let's empower these people and bring.
And that's where I get a buzz off that more than I do. For example, like giving talks, like we had 3 talks each day, and 3 of those were people from the community, and for some people they were the most powerful stories, because one guy, Chris, came to the first summer camp like 8-9 years ago, really quiet, shy, came the second year, and it was only after about 2 or 3 years he actually decided to start his own business, and now he's up there talking about this brewery that he's built, and it was just a nice message for those that have come before, for the first time,
to see the
say,
journey.
Don't beat yourself up if you haven't changed the world by Monday morning, but also understand that this stuff takes time to sort of percolate, and so you might get some inspiration, some ideas, but maybe the time's not right now, and to go easy on yourself. And I think a lot of people, all of us, are guilty of wanting to do more and feeling like we should be doing more, but actually some things just take time to happen.
Yes, being patient is the hardest part, right? Just doing the work. We were talking about marketing actions, and I know you wrote a little just recently. I saw this morning in the community that you posted about a little book that you wrote based on some posts that you did on LinkedIn. Can you tell us a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah, sure. So the funny thing is, I actually wrote it in the foreword for that little book. Was I have been trying to write, I would say, the book, because that's the way I've kind of framed it, which has meant it's become this rod for my own back, basically. I've always wanted to write a book, have a physical thing, just because I've made everything online or an event and just kind of disappears after you've made it. So to have a thing is a big thing for me. Got books behind me, but I've ended up making it too big a thing. So what I found really useful is just writing small micro blogs, let's call it, on LinkedIn. And it's one of the things we get people on our program to do. We have a content challenge. We get people to write something small each day, and in some ways just get out of their head and start working out loud, as we say. So that's something I took on my own at the end of last year and did a 100-day challenge on LinkedIn to just write something small each day. I built this habit, basically, where within 20 minutes I can just get something up there, and if it's not done in 20 minutes, I'll just post it anyway. And so it's less about when it's done, it's more about when the 20 minutes are up that I need to post something.
Building the habit, building the muscle.
Exactly. And hitting publish, that's the key thing, not having the fear, and the fear sort of tends to dissipate the more you do it. And so that's one thing. And then also understanding that some of the things you thought were amazing, other people don't really connect with. Some of the things that took you 1 minute gets hundreds of likes. Other things that took you hours get less. So you almost learn to detach yourself from the success or failure of anything you put out. And so I got to, I think, April, and then just went through what I'd written and put the best 50 of those into a little ebook, which hilariously I did nothing with until a few days ago, when someone in one of our groups, actually it was an event we did last week, a little meetup, going full circle, and we were talking about the fear of hitting publish, and lots of people talking about all these posts they've got sitting in their draft, or a podcast that they've got sitting in a draft because they're scared of it might be their best one, but it's never seen the light of day. And so I was helping them, and then realizing, actually, I've done this little book that I've not actually put out there. I can't talk. So that inspired me then to just do the same and share that with the people, and then just let it go. Like, don't get too wound up about the response.
And don't linger with what everybody else thinks about it. Like you did, you put your words out in the world, and they're out there now. So that's pretty cool.
And it actually feels very cathartic. It just felt like a release, like almost the closing ritual of like, that's done, and now I can move on to the actual book now.
What's the book going to be about?
Well, that's my biggest problem really, is I'm really good normally at like having a vision for something and then it just falls into place. I think the challenge with this is I've always tried to take a lot of the things I've written in the past and build a book around that. So in some ways I would say it's our philosophy. It's, you know, about being a happy entrepreneur, building a happy startup, building a happy business. What does that look like? How do you do it? And
Tell me right now, what does it look like? How do you do it? give me, I don't have to buy your book.
The secret sauce. Okay. I'll do the Blinkist version in like 30 seconds. Well, it's interesting because I had a call with one of my groups today. I'd say one of the biggest things is, well, A is courage. Like courage is in short supply for a lot of us. We're so worried about what other people think. We're so worried about, you know, our own inner critic, like me with the book. But, you know, having the courage to just maybe walk a different path than that is expected of us. So it's really about courage, alignment, I would say, about, you know, aligning what makes you happy with what makes you money and what makes an impact in the world.
That's
we
hard
might know
to do.
those things. Yeah. And it's about balance. You know, I think it was Mahatma Gandhi who said, happiness is what we say, what we think, what we do in harmony. And so that's one of the things I see with a lot of people we work with and I've struggled with in the past is how do you walk the walk? You know, how do you, you know, work with clients you really want to work with and do the work you really want to do and make the impact you really want to make. And I think that comes down to A, courage, B, community, and B, confidence in yourself and your ideas, and to not worry too much about the future because, yeah, uncertainty is everywhere, but we never really understand that until it hits us in the face. So, yeah, trying to trust that you'll be okay, even if things don't work out.
Do you think that having a partner was a game changer for you in this journey that you've had?
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know it any different. Well, I say that I was freelance for 5 years before me and Carlos set out in business together. I definitely got to a point where I was feeling a bit isolated with it, and it wasn't fun anymore. It was just me, you know, with my clients. So yeah, on one hand, I would say, you know, having a business partner is the best thing you can do. But on the other hand, I know how difficult it is to find a really good business partner, like a life partner. The more you want it, the more elusive it becomes. So in some ways, our community is really a community of a lot of solopreneurs, you know, companies of one, or creatives or coaches or consultants who maybe don't have that business partner and crave that connection. And so I think that's what we found is you can find that support in other ways. You don't have to have a business partner. You can collaborate with others who share your values, and that trust can still be there. And so in some ways, that's what I think our community is there for, really, is to give people other playmates to support them or to help them with the things they're not good at, or to hold them to account if they are really bad at doing it themselves, which we all are, and to be that, you know, supportive but critical friend, which Carlos is to me and I am to him, which I think is a beauty of a good partnership, is you can be there to sort of pick each other up when it's bad, but also to sometimes give you a kick up the backside when you need it to.
Yeah. Last rapid fire question. What do you think is the best advice you could give to yourself when you were starting out in community building, for other community builders out there that might be just getting started?
Oh, I would say there's something about putting your own life jacket on first. It's a bit of a cliche, but any community builder would tell you, you know, it is not for everyone. It's, you know, a hard gig in some ways because you're giving so much. And I think only through giving to the point of no return do a lot of us end up realizing what our own boundaries are. So I think that'd be one thing for me, is in terms of energy and time, just be really protective of your own time and boundaries around that, and to do the things that make you top up in terms of energy. And then I'd say on the money side too, the same token, you know, understand that you have to meet your basic needs as a business. And so understanding the difference between building a community or a movement and building a business, and the two can overlap, but it might be that the money doesn't come from where you thought it might come from. And so to not lose sight of that.
Do you know Pamela Slim? Have you heard of Pamela Slim?
I don't know her, but I know body of work, the book. Yeah.
Yes. So she was recently on the podcast, and one of the things she had said that I really thought was interesting, and I had just never really thought about it in the terms that she used, but empire versus ecosystem of like, are you building an empire or are you building an
Mm.
ecosystem of peers? And I think for the Happy Startup School, you're definitely building a system of peers, of people who are, that you can share and maybe post that thing that you're afraid to
Mm.
post on social media, but posting it maybe in your community for these startups are it's a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, exactly. And understanding that we're all still trying to work this out. It's easy to try and look like you know what you're doing and you're the expert, or you're the the leader of this thing, and there's a lot of gurus out there, and there's a lot of people who need gurus, so I can see that is appealing. But yeah, we've never been that kind of person or people, and so being as vulnerable as anyone who's starting out and understanding we're all still on a journey, and every business, every career is still evolving, particularly at the moment. So yeah, I think that gives other people permission to do the same.
Yeah, I know. So the Happy Startup School, you just started your cohort that's going on right now. Is there anything else that's coming up for the Happy Startup School that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so well, further away next year, summer camp's back next September in 2023, and we've got our altitude retreat back in June in the Alps next year. I would say in the next 6 months, for me, it's writing the goddamn book. It is on the post-it in front of me, and also nice. More collaborations. Like summer camps reignited my desire to just connect with more people, and we've got so many amazing teachers and mentors and friends whose work has inspired us and continues to do so. So yeah, the energy I get off other people is something I want to bring back more. So what that looks like, I'm not sure, but again, trying to create space for more playmates and see what comes from that.
Cool. All right. If anybody's interested in joining the Happy Startup School or talking with you, what's the best place for them to go?
So if they just go to the happystartupschool.com, and there's links there to pretty much everything we do. And yeah, just email hello@happystartups.co if you want to contact me or Carlos. That will come through to us. And yeah, any questions, please share them with us.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you again for being here and just deep diving with us around this community strategy that you've evolved over time and continually.
I think it's called the emergent strategy, isn't it? I've heard it called before. There's a book called The Emergent Strategy.
Yeah. So, and that's community building. That's what they talk with in Mighty Community about, workshopping and just developing as you grow and building it with them instead of for them, which are some key components, I think, in community building. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Deb.
All right. Take care, everybody. For everybody, just so your heads up, I did post on social this past week. You've probably already seen that before, but the Community Strategy Podcast is going to be on a pause at the end of the year, but not before we reach 100 episodes. We're celebrating that with David Siegel coming up at the end of the year. But in the next 10 episodes, you'll hear some amazing speakers that are coming up, including Tony from the Mighty Community, director of Mighty Community, and a couple other really amazing people. So, and of course, we've got Laurences episode today, which was wonderful. Lots of takeaways there. So until the next time, I hope you're finding calm in this day, evening, or afternoon. Have fun, find calm, get a little happy, right? Get a little happy in your step. And until the next time, take care and see you later. Bye. Hey, this is Deb Shell, and I am so psyched to let you know I am writing a book. Big deal, I know. Maybe it's not for you, but for me, it's a big deal. And guess what? I'm writing this book for you because honestly, as a new community builder 2 years ago in 2020, I had no idea what I was doing, and I really got really confused easily. So I'm going to simplify things for you. But what I need from you right now is to actually help me make this book possible. And so you can support me with a crowdfunding campaign that I'm running through iFundWoman. I'm going to have a link in the show notes. Please support me. This is running from September 1st through the end of October. So I'm really hoping to reach my goal to be able to write this work style book. It's going to have worksheets. It's going to have templates. It's going to be something that you can actually use today It's not a course that you have to take for 4 weeks. It's not a big book that's not going to give you actionable steps. You're going to be able to take action the same day that you read the book. I'm super excited about this. I've had lots of feedback from clients that this is what they want, this is what they need. So I'm putting it together, and I hope you can support me with it, and I hope it's going to help you. So let me know. Please check out the show notes for that link to the I Fund Woman crowdfunding campaign for the new book I'm writing. It's called Creator to Community Builder. I'm so excited. Thanks for helping me if you've already donated.